Recently, a friend shared with me that a family member had been sending her conspiracy theories and right-wing memes, and as frustrated as she was, she thought she might watch some of it to try and understand where they were coming from. I told her it reminded me of a piece I'd read about a woman whose liberal through life father started watching Fox News in his later years, and his right-wing turn split them apart until she switched him back to NPR, and the father she knew came back and they reconciled. But, my friend asked me, aren't NPR and Fox News both biased, just for different sides? Yeah, but that's not the difference between Fox News and NPR. To get to that, we have to talk about what bias really means. So what is bias? One dictionary defines bias as prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. So bias is considered unfair, but here's the thing. Everybody does it. It's actually impossible to avoid. Let me give you an example. Say you go to the store, buy some bread, and you see your neighbor, Mr. Tittlefingers, because he has a very nice dog you like to stop and pet. Someone asks you what you were up to, and you tell them you went to the store to buy some bread and saw your neighbor. This story can be completely true and still totally biased because you didn't mention that in line behind you was Mrs. Pennyworth, who was buying a bottle of wine. Maybe you didn't mention Mrs. Pennyworth because you didn't notice her, or maybe you didn't know who she is, or you don't know her that well. But any story you tell is going to be based on your perspective, which means that it's always going to be biased. Bias is well known in the film world. In the early 1900s, a Russian filmmaker named Lev Kuleshov made a series of short films with actor Ivan Mashinke. These films had the same format and used a lot of the same imagery. In one, there was a shot of a bowl of soup. Another had a child in a coffin, and a third had a woman on a couch. The next shot was a close-up of Mashinke, and then the film ended. When the first shot was of the bowl of soup, audiences remarked about how concerned he looked about his forgotten bowl of soup. When the first shot was of the child, audiences shared how sad he seemed over the loss of his child. And when the first shot was of the woman on the couch, audiences spoke about how he desired that woman. All of these films used the same footage of Mashinke, but the relationship between them was inferred by the audience because of their bias. The way that we experience and the way that we share is all affected by our bias. Bias is inescapable because simply experiencing something changes how you see it. Because you are shaped by all the experiences in your life, the things you see and share are going to be affected by how you experience them. Bias is a part of how we function as human beings. But that isn't the difference between NPR and Fox News. The difference between Fox News and NPR is, in a word, intent. While even the most even-handed journalist will still suffer from bias, the difference is in the intention of their reporting. Modern news comes in two flavors: information and manipulation. While all information is meant in some way to manipulate the viewer, say, I want to tell you this thing and I want you to believe me that it's true, the real question comes down to the response that the journalist is trying to get from the viewer. Are they trying to inform you, or are they trying to make you feel a certain way? Understanding the difference between the two is a necessary part of critical thinking. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote in 1936, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." Understanding the difference between information that's meant to inform you and information that's meant to manipulate you is about holding the perspective you get while learning information and the emotional response that the journalists want you to have. In other words, does the news manipulate you?
And the language that liberals are using to describe federal law enforcement officials, absolutely disgraceful.
We start with the carnage in Chicago, chaos in Portland, violent crime surging in nearly every major city in America.
But this is what Nancy Pelosi does. You know, Congress hasn't been to work for 3 weeks. She's all dressed up with nowhere to go. A few times a week she makes these appearances with matching scarves, but...
Or does it seek to inform you?
This week, mayors of 15 major cities asked the president to withdraw federal forces from cities and to not deploy similar federal agents without a request.
We'll just start with the trend map, and you see A lot of orange, but 26 states. It was higher just a few days ago. We were at 38 states. 26 states heading in the wrong direction.
But Secretary of States across the country have taken this on, and people like Mitt Romney, the red state of Utah, has over 90% vote by mail. So as you said, Willie, this is not a partisan issue.
Of course, that's just my bias. I want to inform you, but I also have an opinion. There's a million clips I didn't show you, and the clips I did show you backed up my argument. That's why I showed them to you. Communication is about people telling each other things that they want the other person to believe are true. The things we tell each other will always be, in some way or another, biased. You should expect anything you ever read or watch to be in some way biased. It's just part of how we tell stories to each other. But how does the storyteller want you to feel as a result? Pushing an opinion instead of facts is a surefire way to tell that you're being manipulated. But if you're not sure, you can always get a second opinion.